Okay, I'm going to do this quick video because I've had a couple of students get stuck on number 10 and the coding as far as the way it's set up. So I'm using in this case the cloud, and I don't have any of the folders set up yet. So I just want to walk through that and then show you based on the way, if you're only watching this, hopefully that's not the only thing you're doing, because in the Canvas course, I've shown you how to look at code a little differently and the way we will going forward. But I get it. You're watching it and it kind of makes sense just to follow along. So I want to show you first some issues I see that come up with students around that, just following straight, trying to run it from the command line, which is down here. And then I'll build that index file and just show you some of the things I see come up there. So the first thing is over here in the private, I'm going to set up a new folder. Okay, JS Bootcamp. Okay, and then in this first code along section, we have one, and he has this too. And when I say he, I mean Andrew has this one called basics. Okay, so now we have two subdirectories deep in the repo, or in the repo. You call it a folder, but really we call them repos. So now what we're going to do is actually in here, let's just go ahead and create first this strings, because this is the one that most people had a challenge with. Okay, so what I did is I clicked on here, I created my strings.js file, and the coding part didn't seem to throw people off. It was the setup part. So I'll say hello from strings. Okay, and then what you'll notice is that Andrew is going to run this from the command line. Okay, and if you're trying to do that with this particular setup, there's a couple things you have to be aware of. Okay, one, if I come down to the terminal and I just type node and I say strings.js, I'm going to get an error. And the reason I'm going to get an error is that the strings file is located in the basics directory. Okay, and the directory that's by default on the terminal, and you can see this by the words, the determination or the output of what folder you're in, but you can also just do pwd and it'll give you that in a little more concise format. So given that we know we're in the repo directory, but we're trying to run the strings file, what we do is change into that directory or reference it on our node command. And let me just clear real quick. So I'm in here, and so if I just do an ls, which this is why I recommend watching some of that first section to learn some commands. If I do cd js bootcamp, that changes me into the bootcamp directory. And if I do ls there, I see basics. Well, can I run strings from here? And the answer is still no, because I'm not in the right directory. So now if I do, and actually I'm going to show you a different way to change directory that's even easier, is if I right click, I can say open an integrated terminal. And what that does is it opens up another terminal, but it opens me up to that folder directly. So then I can type node strings.js, and then I get my output. Okay, so that's one thing I've noticed. And what I've been saying often when students post about this is what I want you to do is what I showed you in the how did it go. And the reason is that it just makes, the sooner we get to the browser, the better. And that's, because we're going to be using that the entire semester. Okay, so now what I've shown is I have you go to the bootcamp folder. I have you create an index.html. Okay, so what's important here is to start to understand the way folders and files go. And by the way, all your files and folders should be lowercase, because in the case, had I had this be a capital letter or spaces, this would not have worked. So that's why in general, I say lowercase on files and folders and no spaces, and it just creates much less headache, in my opinion. Okay, so now I have the JS folder, and I know this, I can roll it up and I can see that. And then within the JS folder, I have a basics folder. And then in the basics folder, I have a JS strings.js. But then at the same level as basics, okay, at that right underneath JS Bootcamp, I have the index file. So this is where using this built-in utilities, like I showed how to automatically set up the index file. Okay, now why do you want to do this? Well, because what we want to do is actually start looking at the output of the JS file in the console of a browser, because that's what we're here to learn, is how to make things work in a browser. So I'm doing a little pre-learning here, but I understand that, when it's not exactly what you see in the video, so it can throw you off. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, we come down into the body, and you generally do this at the bottom right before you end the body tag, and you type script, okay? Then under script, you add an attribute, right, that you're going to call source equals, and then your editor, Visual Studio Code, automatically sets this up because it kind of knows what you want to do. And here's what many students did, is because of this index file being here, they thought they could just type strings.js and that it should work. Okay, but let's just go ahead and see what happens when we try to output this. And that's where I was showing how to get the extension. And the extension I recommend is Live Server right here. I already have it installed. You can just come in here and actually just click on it and enable it. If it's not enabled, it's showing disabled because it's not enabled yet. So when I come here, now I have to have the index file generally open. I think it might just look at the full directory. Actually, I think that's what it does do. So I have it here. I'm going to go down to go live. Now you may know this. If you don't, if you have some HTML, there's going to be nothing on this page when we go to look at it, but I've shown you how to get in to Chrome DevTools. So let's go ahead and click here. And and by the way, this is also true on the local, when you're doing local dev, okay? But you'll get a little message over here saying it's opening up a service and it's available, and it tells you what port it's on. But this is what generally shows up, is you have another tab, and you'll think, well, there's nothing that happened. Well, if you right click and go into inspect, and you're here, and I already have the console, but if yours looks like this, right click and find, or just click and find the console here, okay? Now I'm going to pull this up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to pull this up a little bit, because here's the error that many people may see. Actually, this is not the error. It's actually up here, okay? It's actually right here, which is the first one. Now, this is just probably because of the IDE, some of this other stuff, but this message right here is saying it can't load that strings.js. So let's come back over here and look at, because this is kind of the same as the way we run it and where we run it from, okay? Because of where this index file is located, this source directory, or the source, what we call the attribute, what we're going to give it, okay, the value, okay, is actually going to be basics, and then it would be strings.js. Okay, and this is because of where the index file is located. Now, we could actually bring the index file or pull it up into the basics directory, but to me, that it just makes it easier as we move, because you're going to create several files, and you can just update this file every time you create a new one and you want to see the output. But before I say too much, let's come over here. And now what will happen is that Live Server automatically reruns the page, and now there's nothing showing over here. Okay, but let's actually come back here, go back to our strings. Okay, let's see, because it actually should be outputting. So let's just, maybe refresh does need to happen. Oh, there it was. It was just so small I couldn't see it. And that even tells me strings, and it's line 1, and that's where it's at. So hopefully this helps, but in general, lowercase everything. If you're running it from the command line, which you can do it this week, but next week you're going to have to change to running it like I'm showing here by running Live Server. So the sooner, to me, the better you get into using that. So I hope this helps anybody who may have had some frustration in getting that done. Have a good one.